Here are some solar panels on the Coney Island subway terminal at Stillwell Avenue. So there are some statistics here on how many kilowatts it produces at peak, and that it's only 15% dependent on the New York City grid. What happens though is it stays connected to the grid. If we had a number of gray, sunless days in a row, the terminal would need to pull power from the Con Ed grid to supplement what it's not getting from the solar. So in this case, they also reduce rainwater contamination by blocking rain and snow from reaching the track and platform areas. So the architectural design has an impact on the rainwater contamination. The sunset, the design based on the natural light, makes artificial light unnecessary. And the ventilation also helps create the appropriate temperature within the terminal. As I mentioned, the 500-mile radius is the radius for local that's used for, in this case, under the LEED rating system, materials. So the benefits are saving transportation energy, creating local jobs, and supporting those local economies. So there we have basically a triple bottom line. We've got people, planet, and profit there in that local component. Let's talk about energy efficiency. So buildings take up a lot of energy. That's one of the biggest impactors on our carbon footprint, the emissions from buildings, and basically heating those buildings. So weatherization, or keeping them cool in the summer and warm enough in the winter, is an important consideration. If you live in a climate like we do on the East Coast, if you're in California, then keeping them cool may be necessary year-round. So materials for weatherization can be that blue foam or insulation that the gentleman in the picture is putting in. That looks to me like an insulation made from recycled blue jeans, which looks great and is actually supposed to be incredibly energy efficient. So Energy Star is one of the first examples we're going to see of a rating system or certification. This happens to be one from the United States government, from the Environmental Protection Agency. And Energy Star basically talks about the energy efficiency of appliances and electric that people actually see. If it's not hidden behind the infrastructure of the building, how well does it help people live and work in that particular environment or structure? So here are a couple of certifications, and as I've mentioned in my comments on your homework, not all of these are created equal, nor do they measure the same types of things. So for instance, Energy Star measures the energy efficiency of electronic equipment and appliances, as I mentioned. FSC, which stands for the Forest Stewardship Council, is actually a certification about responsible forestry, which also tracks electrical equipment. So your refrigerator or your washer and dryer might be Energy Star rated. Evaluating material choices. This is an important consideration when you're constructing something, and this applies to fashion as well, but we're going to stay in the building realm for now. So making decisions about building materials that contribute to a healthier environment, and this can be a challenge, and it also is often a series of trade-offs, as we'll see. So performance comes first, meaning how well does it perform? If it's meant to keep the building warm in the winter, how well does it do that? Is it easy to use? Can it be easily repaired? Clean with non-toxic materials? Is it durable? So it might work well but not last long, so you have to weigh the benefits of something that works really well but only lasts a short term, or something that may work a little bit less efficiently but last much longer. And the design and innovation, is it well designed? Does it help you accomplish the task with minimal interruption or occupants? So how well, if it's something when the trees are taken down, to how they're transported to the mill, and then if they're transformed into planks of wood or into paper, how that's done and where that goes. So when you actually print something using FSC certified stock, it actually has its own unique number from the Forest Stewardship Council, and that number actually has behind it an entire record or chain of custody for that. So that's very different than Energy Star. So if you looked at two products, you really couldn't compare these certifications side by side. Okay, Green Seal, Green Guard, Floor Score, those are other types of certifications for different types of products. We're not going to go into those in depth at this point. Indoor air quality. This is an important consideration for health and wellness in the building, as well as, those then translate to how well can someone perform if it's an office environment, if there are issues with materials in the building, does it give them headaches, does it make them sluggish? So 3 ways that these products can impact the indoor air quality is by using low VOCs, and those are called volatile organic compounds. And VOCs are actually naturally occurring substances in materials, but they can be toxic in large quantities and in closed environments. So a varnish that might go onto a wood table may be made from a natural substance, but it has some kind of an unpleasant odor that can be toxic. It's called an off gas, in fact. And you've probably noticed it if you've gone into a new car, or if you've just wallpapered a house with a plastic-based wallpaper. You notice that plasticky smell, and it lingers for a while, and you may have even noticed a headache from it, and that's an off gas, and it's pretty unpleasant. So working on improving the air quality with the construction company, or IAQ, which stands for Indoor Air Quality, and having a management plan for that is important. So it's the materials, the ventilation system, even the sunlight, because heat may activate some substances in the environment. So it's really important to look into that, as well as products that might be specifically developed for allergic or chemically sensitive people. Conservation of natural resources. I think we've spoken about this a little bit, but you always want to look at what the materials are made of and are they rapidly renewable. And what that means is, if, for instance, bamboo is rapidly renewable, bamboo and cork. So if they are harvested, will they naturally be able to renew themselves rapidly? Cork, by the way, while it is rapidly renewable, it is a very managed industry. It actually takes 9 years for a cork tree to regrow the cork, which is actually the bark of that tree. And they grow mostly in Spain and Portugal, and it's really a heavily regulated industry for hundreds of years there. Recycled materials. So if the blue jean insulation that you saw in the prior picture would be a good example of a recycled material. Durability, how well does it last or hold up? Cork flooring actually is incredibly durable. Water savings. So to manufacture the material, does it save water, or does using it save water? And water quality. So to manufacture it, does the manufacturer require using chemicals or dyes that would go into our water supply from the manufacturing facility and cause harm? So these are some of the things to look for. And at the bottom here, when it mentions third-party stewardship, that would be something like the Forest Stewardship Council or the Sustainable Forestry Initiative that monitor these processes and even put a seal on a product or process to say that, yes, it complies in whatever ways they're measuring the compliance. We're going to talk more about seals, who governs them, how they're initiated in next week's assignment. Responsibility. So responsibility, you've heard about corporate social responsibility, CSR, corporate responsibility reports, etc. So what it measures is the corporate environmental position or management plan. Whether local green jobs are created, is there community involvement and or social action? And I would, add to this what the corporate environmental position can also include is how do they treat their workers? So it's not the environment, but it's the human side of it. So this is just a look at many of the seals that are out there. The triangles in the grayed out area, you've probably seen their recycling number. So evaluating material choices, as I've mentioned, not all certifications are created equal, so we need to demystify the product data. And not all manufacturers give the same amount of information. They also don't necessarily present it in the same way, which can make it really hard for us to compare different products side by side. And there is a push to have a standard by which all things are labeled, but that hasn't happened yet. So we've seen it, with food industry labeling in this country, and it works fairly well. When products come from outside this country, they don't always have the same labeling. If you ever buy, like, perhaps a jar of jam that came from another country, you may not see the labeling in quite the same way or with the same level of detail. So the question is there sufficient ingredient disclosure? Without that, how could we tell if a product meets the requirements we have? Comparing the VOC, or those volatile organic compound levels, not only to local code minimum, and they're referring here to building code, but to LEED and GD internal criteria. So how do those VOC levels compare? Will they pass building code, but also if you're going for a LEED or the GD certification, does it pass for those criteria? And then what other ingredients might be in there? So there's a red flag chemical list of chemicals that are toxic and should be looked out for. And if you're working on a building product, this is something that your architect or if you had a LEED accredited professional on the project, they could handle this. So you don't necessarily need to know these kind of nitty-gritty. I just want you to have a kind of 360 or 30,000 foot view of this and understand the kind of factors you'd want to look at. So here's an approach to considering healthy building practices. Now, these icons on the left are icons that Green Depot developed. ABC Home and Carpet also developed their own set of icons for their environmental and socially responsible products. So you can see the 500 mile is clearly easily displayed and recognizable in the local materials category: energy efficiency, air quality, a fan. So these are the kind of icons you'll see. The Green Depot retail store is set up in categories under these signs and labels.